I presume you're here in order to learn of Magecraft. I'll have you know, there's no room for the weak-willed in this course, and despite your best efforts, the sorcery of our time is but a fraction of what it once was in the Age of Gods. Much of the craft is established through pedigree, and the culture of mages is riddled with deception and moral depravity. That said, if you insist, I shall do my best to educate you in this miserable, yet fascinating world.
In our previous lesson, I presented all the relevant details surrounding 23 of the infamous 27 dead apostle ancestors. In general, this vampiric race exists both as a result of the true ancestors seeking sustenance for their bloodlust, and from the intellectual curiosity of mages who seek to confront their mortality. For today, I wish to cover the remaining 4 dead apostle ancestors, as well as an unofficial 5th member of the group. These individuals are especially rich with information to cover, due in no small part to their lofty ambitions, hence why they have garnered an entire lesson of their own. Quite possibly the most aggressive and outright dangerous of the dead apostle ancestors is the 10th seat, Nero Chaos. Initially, he was an alchemist from the Wandering Sea, known as Fabro Rowan. His magical research revolved around merging different combinations of living creatures as a means of life extension. At its pinnacle, Rowan used this research to absorb different creatures into his own body, achieving immortality on par with that of dead apostles. Essentially, he achieves this form by deploying a reality marble, layer of the Beast King, within himself. Through it, he can devour all manner of animals from bears, lions, alligators, birds, and even phantasmal species, assimilating them into himself. Mind you, these are not familiars, but literal extensions of his physical body that can detach and reabsorb as needed. Normally, even a talented mage can only hope to hold 30 beasts, but because he does not impose his reality marble upon the world, it can remain constantly active, with little cost compared to traditional reality marbles, allowing him to absorb 666 beasts. The sustenance he needs to maintain the marble can be obtained vicariously through the energy his beasts obtain as independent hunters. Using this method, he has managed to live for over a millennium, though it is not without consequence. In essence, this process has cost him his own identity, instead allowing his individuality to merge within a collective consciousness formed from the lives he's absorbed. Even so, this was a calculated risk on Rowan's part, with the ultimate goal of understanding and gaining control of the chaos within him. Thus, after embracing this chaos, he's since gone by the name Nero, given to him by the church to signify the number of beasts he's assimilated. Throughout his life, Nero Chaos has wrought havoc upon humanity, his exploits going back as far as the First Crusade, in which he slaughtered people from all sides of the conflict to stain the desert crimson with blood. Despite being a self-created dead apostle, he still suffers from classic ailments such as an aversion to sunlight. Being about during the day will not kill him, but it will weaken his power significantly. Similarly, while he has a vampire's typical mystic eyes of enchantment, his are fairly weak. As one might expect, the longer he lives, the more mana he needs to consume for survival. In the modern day, he can devour over 100 people in a single rampage, and still only have enough energy for a handful of fights. Nevertheless, he remains extremely dangerous, able to dispatch hordes of feral beasts from his tar-like build. Destroying any number of these beasts one by one is a futile effort, as they will merely regenerate within the chaos. Instead, the chaos itself must be killed. Even his own humanoid body is but an extension of the chaos, and will suitably reform once destroyed, unless killed on a conceptual level, via something like the mystic eyes of death perception. In fact, this very thing occurs when Shiki severs Nero's chaos via its points of death. What I find fascinating is that if one were to kill Nero's dispatched creatures and prevent it from being reabsorbed, the corpse of said creature could be used to patch up or enhance someone else's physical body. While the creatures still behave like rubber or tar, they will eventually begin to mimic human flesh, if not done in excess. Following the death of Nero Chaos, the 10th position was succeeded by Luvia, an ancient dead apostle created by a true ancestor. Technically, the name Luvia refers to 3 dead apostles, a father and his 2 children who all share the name, but the 10th spot primarily refers to the father. Originally, he was an apostle who thrived in Norway for 500 years, until being nearly slain by church executors. It was after this encounter that he began to nurture his own lineage and territory. He was a follower of Torafim Ortenros when he filled the 10th seat's vacancy. In celebration of this appointment, Luvia held a gathering for his relatives, only to receive a rose prophecy predicting his imminent demise. Rather than heed the warning, he holds the gathering anyway, and it is interrupted 3 hours later by attackers from different factions. On one end, there is the mage Bartholomew Lorelei, and on the other, the dead apostle Enhance I spoke of in our previous lesson. Enhance was the first to arrive, infiltrating Luvia's castle by hiding in the stomach of a horse, carrying guests to the meeting. Enhance wounds Luvia's son before running into Bartholomew. While the 2 of them fight over their shared target, all 3 of the main Luvia family gather to defend themselves against attackers. By the time Enhance and his rival put their feuding aside to reach their target, it is already too late. The Luvia trio has been unmistakably killed by a 3rd attacker, Shiki Nanaya, who has since joined Arcoade Brunstud in hunting vampires. Merim Solomon refers to Shiki in this new role as Satsujinki, or Shiki the Killer, whereas other dead apostles fear him as death incarnate. Regardless, thanks to Shiki's intervention, the 10th seed of the dead apostle ancestors did not remain filled for very long at all. This is shocking, because for all intents and purposes, Luvia was a talented dead apostle, known for wielding a powerful conceptual mace, alongside keen skills as a mage. Another dead apostle who started out as an ordinary mage is Kabak Alcatraz, the 27th seat. He was one of Zelrech's old friends, and was also present during Arcoade's birth. While this was the only time he met the princess, he stood out to her, and the 2 of them remain acquaintances. This is odd, considering Arcoade primarily hunts dead apostles. Sure enough, she would kill him if only she could, but Alcatraz's circumstances are unique. Ever since his first death, Alcatraz has lived on in a form more akin to a padlock, safeguarding a treasure chest meant to contain the Holy Scripture Triton, an artifact he had stolen from the church. In this form, he's been missing for over a century, actually being trapped inside Triton. From his perspective, Triton is a tranquil paradise with neither morning nor night, where he counts the time he spends there in full centuries rather than days. Inside, he sates his bloodlust by repeatedly killing himself as a sort of reincarnation. From the outside, the Holy Scripture takes the form of a girl named Hibiki Hibino, who considers Alcatraz to be her grandfather. When not manifesting directly as Triton, she is a cheerful girl who helps at a local cafe, Ananerba. While theoretically it's possible to meet with and kill Alcatraz by entering his treasure chest, Arcoade deems it too much of a hassle so long as he stays within his own world. As such, the 2 only communicate through mysterious phone calls. Some have even said that Alcatraz inhabits a new body as Mr. Cellphone, a mystic code created by Zelrech. As silly as this sounds, Alcatraz was originally a mage nearing the level of a magician. In terms of accomplishments, he is best known for creating labyrinths. The treasure chest protecting Triton is considered one such labyrinth, explaining why not even he can escape from it. More notoriously, however, is Kabak Alcatraz's 7th labyrinth, an underground dungeon densely packed with phantasmal species like carnivorous fairies, chimeras, automatons, and all manner of lethal traps. Equally eerie is the 7th seat, Inash, a former hypnotist who could manipulate his target's memories. Having turned himself into a dead apostle through Magecraft, Inash had to protect himself from Arcoade, and did so by forcing her to forget his very existence. With some help, however, Arcoade was eventually able to reclaim this memory, and subsequently slaughter Inash's whole clan. Sadly, through an oversight, she accidentally made an even more dangerous dead apostle by leaving Inash's corpse beneath a blood-sucking tree. After drinking the blood of a dead apostle, the entire forest around it became a dead apostle itself, succeeding the seventh seat as the Forest of Inash, a vampiric phantasmal species that manifests every 50 years to devour unsuspecting intruders. Since the Middle Ages, this forest has been drinking blood recklessly, but despite its unhinged violence, the Holy Church has never been able to stop it. In a sense, one might call this forest infectious, as it produces fruit that drips blood. Upon staining the earth, this blood germinates, creating smaller vampiric forests called Children of Inash. Thankfully, unlike their parent, these subforests only manifest once apiece. One such Children of Inash played a key role in Dr. Heartless's Rail Zeppelin incident. Eventually, the main forest drains enough surrounding villages for the church to task Ciel and Merum Solomon with slaying it. Ultimately, however, it is once more Shiki Nanaya who ends the dead apostle's life, freeing the survivors left inside. In my opinion, the most complicated of the dead apostle ancestors is the 13th seat, the Night of Wallachia, mainly due to its many incarnations. Initially, the Night of Wallachia was a prestigious Atlas alchemist by the name of Zephia Altnum Oberon. As with many Atlas alchemists, Zephia was concerned with possible ways in which the world might meet its end. In his case, the destruction he predicted was otherwise inevitable due to a universal system known as the Sixth Law. Driven mad by his helplessness, Zephia aimed to abandon his humanity in order to gain control of the Sixth Law and avert the destruction it would bring. To this end, he broke the cardinal rule of Atlas mages, that their secrets must be kept within the Egyptian temple, and he ventured to the outside world as the vampiric Night of Wallachia. While dead apostles are certainly powerful, this form was only a means to an even greater end for him. To effectively reach the Sixth Law, he believed he would need to become not just any vampire, but a true ancestor. The form he takes as a dead apostle complements this. Rather than a specific being, the Night of Wallachia is a cursed reality marble known as Tatari, which first got its name from the mythical vampire Dracula, believed to haunt Romania. Tatari is a curse that takes on the image of a community circulating fears and rumors. Zephia was originally able to become this curse with the help of Altruge Brunstud, who summoned the Crimson Moon to transform him. Over the following 1,000 years, the Tatari would manifest at various places to wreak havoc, with the goal of reaching a pre-calculated moment in the future where he could manifest beside Arcuade Brunstud and derive a true ancestor's power from her. This encounter occurs within modern-day Misaki Town, in which Tatari manifests by conjuring the different nemeses Shiki and Arcuade had previously feared or defeated. Ultimately, both Zephia and his ambitions were destroyed when Arcuade harnessed her marble phantasm to strip away the powers previously granted to him by the Crimson Moon. Sadly, however, this battle only ended Zephia's incarnation of Tatari, as the phenomenon was able to spread to descendants. Prior to his defeat, Zephia's existence as Tatari only allowed him to manifest on select nights, where he would sate his thirst for blood. This made Tatari a difficult opponent for the Holy Church, as they couldn't easily determine when or where he might appear next. Even worse, Tatari, being more of a curse than a specific being, could only be harmed by specific tactics and weaponry. As such, 3 years prior, when the Church was finally able to pinpoint Tatari's next appearance, they requested Atlas's aid in ending the curse. One of Zephia's descendants, Sion Eltnamatlasia, volunteered to take part in the operation alongside her friend, Riesbeif Stridberg, completely underestimating her opponent. Both the Church and Atlas failed as Tatari slaughtered an Italian village and the combatants. So that Sion could escape, Riesbeif sacrificed herself in futility. Ultimately, Tatari drank 3 liters of Sion's blood, making her a candidate as his successor. Conveniently, this allowed Sion to survive the encounter, and because of Tatari's temporary manifestations, his influence over her was weak. As such, Sion would not immediately turn into a vampire, giving her time to seek out a cure. Of course, when Tatari manifested in Misaki Town 3 years later, Sion's struggle with bloodlust became much worse. When fully transformed into a vampire, Sion inherits the Tatari curse, carrying on the wild bloodshed. In this state, she is barely recognizable, foregoing the use of her ether light to attack with her claws. She directly inherits memories from Zeppia's many previous victims, including that of her friend Riesbeif. It is this friendship that serves as Sion Tatari's only remaining link to humanity. In addition, there is one more manifestation of Tatari that takes on a form called the Dust of Osiris. It is a potential future version of Sion that, despite Tatari's influence, hopes to take control over it. Rather than fleeing Atlas, afraid of her own bloodlust, she remains, aiming to resurrect Riesbeif and cure her vampirism by creating the Philosopher's Stone. Like Zeppia, the Dust of Osiris understands humanity's inevitable demise, but reasons that she can salvage mankind by destroying the world herself and storing human history as an eternal record. I find it fascinating how this family lineage is linked to vampirism as a method of saving humans. Much like the Holy Grail's corruption by Angra Mainyu, it seems that even the best of wishes can be twisted for disaster. The very final Dead Apostle I wish to cover is not formally one of the 27. Rather, he is considered an extra seed due to his heretical views and behaviors. It is known as the Serpent of Akasha, the infinite reincarnator Michael Roa Valdamjong. As opposed to mages who become Dead Apostles, Roa was actually a church priest who, ironically, helped found the burial agency that would later hunt him. Despite being a top member of the church, he decided to betray them and join the Mages Association in order to research immortality. Ideally, he wanted an immortality far superior to that of Dead Apostles, but reluctantly chose to become a vampire so that he could use his longer lifespan to continue this research. Greatly influencing his decision was his immediate affection for Arcuade Brunstad. At a moment of vulnerability, when Arcuade was first struggling with her bloodlust, Roa snuck up behind and seduced her into drinking his blood. Naturally, by choosing Arcuade for his vampiric rebirth, Roa emerged as an especially powerful Dead Apostle. Using his connection to the church, he freed Dead Apostles that were held captive there. Adding them to his forces, Roa was able to gain both notoriety and vitriol. Long-established Dead Apostles felt his rise abrupt and threatening, so they appointed Altruge Brunstad to punish him. That said, not even her strength was a match for Roa's might, and so the Dead Apostle ancestors found it best to ignore him. In fact, the only person who could kill Roa was Arcuade, the true ancestor that created him. Thus, when Arcuade began hunting Dead Apostles, she made a point of eradicating Roa. Thanks to his research of immortality, however, Roa was able to reincarnate into a new host with each defeat, persisting in this way 15 times as Arcuade continued to kill him. His most noteworthy reincarnation was his 17th, in the year 1976, when he took over the body of a French baker named Alicia. Normally, Roa would handpick his new hosts based on their wealth and social presence. But for this incarnation, he was forced to settle for somebody with only physical compatibility. Conveniently though, while Elysia was an ordinary village girl, she wound up being one of his best vessels due to her magical potential. Roa began to manifest within Elysia on her 16th birthday, and he used her to commit atrocities on her fellow villagers, slowly taking over. As expected, Arcuade was eventually able to track down this new incarnation and kill her, forcing Roa to move on to his next host. Unlike previous incarnations, however, Elysia was able to revive and even regain her original consciousness. The church found this fascinating, and so they abducted Elysia to test the limits of her regenerative abilities. They would kill her again and again, horrifically torturing her for their own curiosity. The church found that, so long as Roa's soul continued to reincarnate, her body would remain immortal no matter the trauma placed upon her. As such, in order to finally die, Elysia joined the burial agency to hunt down Roa under the name Ciel. She tracked Roa's current form down to Japan, where she found him possessing the body of Shiki Tono, the biological heir to the Tono bloodline. When Roa first manifested into Shiki, it triggered the boy's demonic inversion impulse, compelling him to try and kill his own sister Akiha. It was the duty of the head of the Tono family to eliminate any kin that inverted, but Shiki's father, Makihisa Tono, could not bring himself to kill his own son. Instead, he kept Shiki in secret confinement. Over the next 10 years, Roa remained dormant within Shiki, until finally waking once more to battle Arcuade. In addition to his physical strength as a dead apostle, Roa practices a form of magecraft known as numerology, which he uses to discharge electricity and amplify other spells, such as his reality marble Overload. Specifically within the body of Shiki Tono, Roa can take advantage of his mystic eyes, which serve to rival the mystic eyes of death perception possessed by Shiki Nanaya. It is a dangerous game, however, as both Ciel's seventh holy scripture and Shiki Nanaya's eyes are capable of killing not just his body, but his core existence. As a result, this particular incarnation becomes his last. As a side note, a different version of Roa can be found on other timelines, where his incarnation Tarantella is thoroughly burned away by Edmond Dantes in battle. Dantes' flames dissolve his soul, so even on these timelines, Roa is no more. In summation, the 27 Dead Apostle ancestors are a loosely formed hierarchy of vampires that comprise the absolute elite. Many of them came about from the bloodlust of true ancestors, but plenty others were mages who intentionally sought vampirism for the sake of their own ambitions. The information available on them is always changing, but that in no way invalidates the effort taken to understand them. If anything, it means that I may have to return to this topic another day. For our next lesson, however, I would prefer to move on to something different. Specifically, I aim to cover the wild and potentially dangerous beings that exist in our world by covering phantasmal species.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this channel, help me beat the algorithm by liking, commenting, and sharing the video, subscribing to OtakuDaiKun, and, most of all, smashing that notification bell so you don't miss out on all of my anime discussion, lore, or Let's Play content. If you want to support me directly, there are now 3 ways that all provide the same benefits. You can click Join here on YouTube, or join Patreon or Subscribestar for access to exclusive vids and early access. As always, celebrate your fandom.